Batman 115. James Tynion the fourth writing with Bengal on art and Jorge Jimenez guesting for like 2 pages.
Yeah.
So get that out of the way first. But yeah, so this is next chapter in Fear State. Kind of more of a downbeat chapter. I think this is one that's more about setting up kind of where we're getting into in the end run. I think the change in artist does unfortunately hurt the mood quite a bit because and it's especially worse because when you get to those Scarecrow pages, which are the pages that Jimenez is doing, and it's like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
And it hurts because I love Bengal. Like, I think absolutely fantastic artist. I really do. And if that was just the look of this Bat book in general, I'd be all in on this.
Yeah, it takes it from a dark and gritty to an almost pulpy.
It's like it's so different and
the mood
cartoonish in comparison to Jimenez, which is what we've had for this arc.
Yeah,
it's the contrast of it that hurts the book, not that the art is bad.
It's just not the right vibe. It feels like someone turned on a light and started vacuuming.
Yeah,
like it's in terms of the mood.
Yeah, but it does work in like the Ivy scenes because those are so different than what's going on up in the city.
I'm pretty sure Bengal did some of the art on the early Batgirl Rebirth book after Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Which
possibly.
Like it suited that book a lot. This not so much.
I mean, I don't think the art's bad typically, but there is 1 or 2 panels of Ivy that I think are a bit rough, where she looks like she's like 6 years old, and it kind of bugged me. So a bit smooth in the face at times for my taste, but yeah. So this is the, if you remember, the end of the last issue was Peacekeeper 1 blowing up Peacekeeper X. So it was this big moment where Scarecrow convinces him to do that because Scarecrow's in his head.
Yep.
So this is Simon Saint reacting to this at the start of the issue, kind of freaking out, saying, well, let's go get his body because his brain still might be kicking, sort of mad scientist stuff. Like, we can still use his brain.
That's very RoboCop.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, hell, the Magistrate are very OCP in a lot of ways when you think about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That line reminded me of someone calling ambulance. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, but then some analyst is like, hey, we've been doing some readings about the city, and we think that Ivy's, got roots under the entire city and could, collapse the whole thing if she wants to. And
worse than No Man's Land.
Worse. I'll admit that line did annoy me a little bit. It was like shoehorning the title. I mean, I'm actually cool with them referencing that time period. I think that's a neat idea, especially if you're trying to describe what happens if the entire city has what will be essentially a massive like quake. But actually forcing the title of the story into the sentence is annoying.
I never felt like they called it No Man's Land. It was just Gotham still. So alternate line maybe something like, since the last time we had a big earthquake. Remember what that did to the city? But it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Do you know what? I think what bothers me is it's actually it's one letter. It's the A. See if it was just when Gotham was No Man's Land, I think it would read probably just fine. But when Gotham was a No Man's Land, actually sounds really clunky to me. Because I'm sure it was referenced as a No Man's Land at some point, during
I think
the story.
It's because it is grammatically correct to say a No Man's Land.
Yeah.
But the fact that we know this was a big event back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it does feel a little bit clunky.
Yeah. I think if he just kind of owned it and because if he said when Gotham was No Man's Land, it kind of just kind of owns it and says no, people refer to it as No Man's Land, and it would feel more natural.
Right.
And I'm not saying that always works. I hate whenever they say 0 year, I just want to vomit because it's stupid and no one would call it that. But at least that would make more sense. But I don't know. It's like they're trying to have their cake, but also eat it in the sense that. But we don't want to like actually kind of use it as if it was a title. We're kind of pretending it's not a title, and it's almost more insulting because of that.
Right.
But anyway, so Saint's like, we're going to go after Ivy now. We've got a new target. We can bring this city down and take back control with Ivy. And we cut to Ivy, Queen Ivy in particular, with Master Wise, and we get some of Master Wise's backstory about how he kind of started off with the Mad Hatter. That's where some of the tech was developed with.
More on Mad Hatter later.
Yeah.
I find it funny how much he's starting to factor into Fear State.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We then cut to Peacekeeper 1. This is when we switch back to the Jimenez art. It's him wandering in the sewers. Scarecrow makes his appearance. Scarecrow looks fantastic. I mean, I know we say that. We've been saying that for a lot of this arc. But...
He's so creepy. Like, it's not like scary, but just him standing there so peacefully like that. It's unnerving.
Yeah, it's just really good. There's not really much to it other than that. Hey, you're my tool. You're going to help me, cure this city. And he's kind of manipulating him, playing on his mind. And then just to skip ahead to the later scene, it's basically yes, and I'm going to strap you into this machine, which turns out to be the Batman and Miracle Molly plot that we get to next, which is effectively they're going after the device that Master Wise uses to reboot people's brains, keep the essential skills and that, but reboot their personalities so that they start from fresh. It removes
their trauma, as what Miracle Molly says.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that it's also kind of like storing all the data of what their trauma is, which a bit of a flaw in the system.
I don't know. It's the logic of it being the algorithmic learning makes sense, right?
Oh no, I agree. The way she explains it does make sense.
Yeah, but the fact that it's just sitting, all these people's trauma, right, is just sitting there waiting for someone to come and use it for all the wrong reasons. And it's very...
And that's what it becomes. Scarecrow has got a hold of it, and he's going to use it to basically just pump fear and trauma into the city, via Peacekeeper 1. So, like, all that stuff that it sets up is fine. I think what hurts this issue, in terms of pacing, other than the fact that the art changed, so the mood feels very different, which I think is maybe the biggest thing, but it is a lot of exposition. Like I'm not necessarily against Master Wise having interacted with Mad Hatter a little bit, but throughout those couple of pages, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is fine, but it's not that interesting or exciting. Like, I'm not like super engrossed in it.
I do like it though, because it just shows how Master Wise learned from Mad Hatter about kind of being who you need to be, and that wasn't, what he needed to do. It wasn't that. It was that he wanted to actually help people. So I do like that the whole Unsanity Collective does come from a good place. It's just how they're going about it is a little bit off.
Yeah.
So I do like how it just doubled down on that with him.
And I do like that it clashes with what Mad Hatter, because Mad Hatter's whole thing is that he makes people not who they are. Like, he intentionally turns them into someone else. Mm-hmm. So there's a nice contrast with that.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the things is you do get like a panel of Scarecrow with the other art towards the end of the book, when it's kind of like showing you various things. It's when Batman and Miracle Molly are talking, and you see how much more plain it looks versus the Jimenez version.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay. I mean, there were the right pages to pick. Right, if you're really going to have Jimenez on 3 pages, there were the right ones to pick, but it still kind of hurts. So. There's a whole action beat here as well, which just kind of felt inconsequential, which is the big guy from the Insanity Collective is guarding the machine. He's been toxined by Scarecrow to defend the machine at all costs, and Miracle Molly has a little scene where she jumps up and like deactivates his big gauntlets, which give him effectively metahuman levels of punching power, and it's just a fine scene.
I did like her cursing at herself for creating something so good, like those gauntlets that she created. She has those are top notch, and now they're causing a problem for her. I did like
Superman
that.
Would feel it, and Batman's like, that's not great.
Yeah. So so the issue ends back at Ivy's lair with the magistrate showing up and her getting pissed off and saying, "No, I knew this was going to happen by letting people in," and Simon Saint yelling, "Bring me her head." Yeah, it's an okay issue. I think it's probably one of the weakest, if not the weakest, of all of Fear State, because it doesn't like ruin anything, it doesn't mess anything up. It's just the art feels like the mood's completely different, and I think most of the book is exposition. It's either exposition of Master Wise and Mad Hatter backstory stuff, and then it's exposition of, oh, this is the machine. Let us just explain this more for Batman. And I think because at least a couple of us had read the Miracle Molly one shot, which I think told us what that machine did in a much more interesting way that mattered to the character. So it was far more engrossing to learn through what it was actually giving her, because she was in such a bad place. Having this dump of information from her explaining what it is again just kind of felt like, oh, yeah, okay.
It's kind of frustrating for us as well because we read that, but it's essential to have that in here as well for people such as Matt.
I didn't
read
I listened
issue.
to you guys talk about that issue, but
there are definitely lots of people who are just reading Batman and nothing else that need to have that explained to them.
Yeah,
as frustrating as it might be for us.
It's a weird double-edged sword, because I completely get the logic, but it's not only just that I've already learned all of this elsewhere, but I learned it in a much better way. Like the story that was told in that one shot was really good. So having it all kind of brought up here in a vastly inferior, just like, let's catch everyone who's not reading the other things up. It's kind of just awkward and clunky, and just makes that scene kind of boring as it's playing out.
Yeah, it just plays into the worst elements of crossover events, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're gonna feel that a lot in some of these. Just that that's sometimes the price for a big crossover like this.
Yeah, so some handle it better than others, obviously. I think this is just a really unfortunate beat in this story. I mean, it's not a bad issue. I definitely think it's... I'm very lukewarm on it, and it has in no way hurt my excitement for the next issue or the end of the story. It's not negatively impacted anything, but this issue was a little bit... I mean, it feels harsh to say dud, but it definitely feels like a big step down from the rest of the issues.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's not a bad issue. It's an essential issue, but I think it's very telling that this is the fill-in artist, right? This is not... I think it's very clear Tynan wants Jimenez to be the main storyteller on this arc. He wants this to be Jimenez's story just as much as Tynan's, and I guess this issue is like, okay, what can I write that someone else can draw most of that will be like fine, but not take away from Jimenez being part of this story in a major way.
Yeah. So yeah, not that hot on it, unfortunately. But hey, I'm still excited for the rest of the story, so it's all good in that sense. Matt, what are you giving the main story in Batman?
I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
Connor?
I'm actually going to agree with the 6.5.
I was just going to go with a straight 6, but yeah, we're all in a similar ballpark. Now, I actually read the backup to this.
I'm shocked.
I did as well, because this is the exact team that is doing the Batgirl.
That is why, because I wasn't planning on it, and I got to I always look at the first page of the backup to see what it is, and I saw Batgirls, and I saw the names, and I looked at the art and went, that art looks quite good. And I thought,
I'm surprised you didn't have like a Google alert going that Batgirl's book.
So naturally, I had to check it. I had to see and get a taste of and it's one of those things where we know from, let's say, Nightwing, where the crossover stuff right now is good, but not as good as the actual ongoing book. So it's like, okay, this is a taste of the main book, but presumably the main book could be a bit better because it's not tying into things.
I'm also glad I read it, because I think it was the end of, I want to say it was Nightwing, that was like, hey, check out the Batgirl's backup in, I think it's Batman 116.
Yeah, and that also refers back to the Batwoman story in the Urban Legends book as well at one point.
Yeah.
So
it was worth me reading that.
Yeah, there was a reference.
There was a reference.
Because
I
read that too, and I don't feel like anything. Outside of someone impersonating.
I'm trying to justify it to myself.
Matt, there was an editor's note saying, "Go see what they're talking about from this story."
No, I understand that, but does it enrich
really
this story anymore? I don't think so.
Is it worth it? I thought he was saying, was it really referencing that, or is it ambiguous?
No.
Okay.
I meant, was it really like, do you need to? I don't think so.
So, so it's Batgirls. It's a 3-part Fear State tie-in backup. And given the Batman's double shipping during Fear State, this will be a month and a half of these 3 parts. Which is a nice little teaser. You get a sense of, and this has worked for other books. The backup in Detective that's building to Task Force Z is actually made me into that book. So yeah, this is Batgirls. This is Cass and Steph and Babs, and the really real thing here with this, connected it to the other books that feels a bit weird is that it's sort of directly like referencing Nightwing, and Nightwing references back to this kind of. But what's weird is that Barbara in this is completely Oracle the whole time, and in Nightwing she's like in the Batgirl suit and out doing Batgirl. Like my mind couldn't quite connect how they were syncing up.
Does feel like a slight editorial flub.
Yeah, especially since the cliffhanger in Nightwing kind of says, "See what happens to them," and Batgirl's like, so that's it. So she's already in the outfit before this backup. That's a bit weird, but okay.
Well, so maybe this happens. So it goes. The Batwoman story where they first see Cass with the imposter, and then it cuts to this, and then it goes to Nightwing, and then it goes to 116. So,
did it specifically say 116 at the end of Nightwing? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it's not before this one. Okay, that's a little bit better. So yeah. So I mean, it's basically the Magistrate are causing chaos. The big thing though is that Seer, whoever's taken over the Oracle network, is causing chaos and breaking up communications. Steph and Babs lose contact with Cass, although we get some great action. I think the first thing I'll say about this is I'm excited about the art in this new book, because I really like the art in this. How did you feel about it, Connor?
Yeah, mostly a big fan. I think there's the odd bit here or there where it's a little bit angular for my liking, but I like the overall vibe.
Yeah, very square heads.
Yeah,
very square heads. It's very cartoony. It's got like a lot of detail in the line work. There's
a flow to it too.
There's a flow to it. I like the coloring. I like the color palette specifically, quite a bit. And I think
the background work reminds me like James Stokoe.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah. I think it's kind of the perfect tone that I would actually want for a Batgirls book, actually. When I think of my favorite Batgirl stuff from either Cassie's run or the Stephanie Brown stuff with Brian Q. Miller, not that they have art exactly like this, but you could almost take the blocky art from the Cass stuff and then the art from the Stephanie Brown stuff, and if you put them in a blender, you might get something that's not that far away from the style of this. So I kind of appreciate that. So they get worried about Cass, even though we do get a couple of great pages of Cass like just tearing shit up because she's Cass. But Steph goes off to try and find her, and is able to get to her. There's a lot of sort of communication and narration from whoever's taken over the Seer character, who they do heavily imply is someone else that we might recognize when we do eventually, because she's got a digital disguise, so we might know who. I mean, maybe it'll just be a random person that's just a disguise. So
it could be that they want to disguise so they're not immediately recognized. That's probably good advice for a villain, right?
Yeah, but
we can talk about this at Nightwing.
Sure, but I mean, it could also end up just being oh, it's the calculator. Or
that was one of my first guess as well.
I don't know
do I think the reason we've both gone to that? Because the calculator plays in fairly heavily to that Batgirl run.
Yes, it does.
Brown.
Yeah. But also
he was trying to be the anti-Oracle, right? Like that was his whole mission.
That was kind of part of it, yeah.
Yeah, no, there's panels here of like sorry. It's because I say Batgirl, but then I sort of backed out because I was like, no, I need to specify.
To be more specific.
Yeah. So there's like a back-to-back panel of Steph and Cass, and I think they do a great thing here where Cass, quite rightly, is speaking in short sentences, just one or two words, and Steph is a motor mouth, so there's a nice contrast between them as they're doing this. And there's a great little moment actually. And this is where I really kind of like the art, is Steph says, Cass, you took out all those guys yourself, they're in the sewers at this point, you're amazing and kind of scary, and you can actually see Cass getting kind of sad behind the mask, and she says, I didn't mean, and she's like, Cass, it's okay, we're Batgirls, scary's good, we're supposed to be scary.
Yeah, scary's a good thing.
So yeah, I dig that a little bit. So yeah, basically Seer's like taunting Babs, and Steph and Cass are trying to get to her, and it just kind of ends more or less about there, as Seer's basically saying, hey, I've got eyes on everything, I know where they are, I've got eyes on you, and it's kind of taunting her with images of her dad, saying, I could be your dad, wouldn't that be funny, and then images of Batman and stuff. So as with a lot of these backups that are multi-parts, 10 pages is not a lot of time to get a lot of story in. But I did like the characterizations, I did like the art, and I did like the action. So
I like the vibe.
Yeah, the vibe's good. So I'm feeling more positive about this book now after reading this than I was before.
Yeah,
you were quite cautious, weren't you?
The writing team's not worked for me that well.
Doesn't inspire a lot of excitement in Pete.
Yeah, but I like this quite a bit, so I'm kind of looking for it. I mean, it's hard to rate a backup like this because it is just the first part of a story, and there's not much plot actually progressing yet. So I'll say 7 because of that. But I mean, in terms of what I like about it, I feel much better about it. So it's a big success in my mood, even if I'm not rating it absurdly highly. What do you feel, Connor?
Like a 7, if I'm giving it a number. It's good. I enjoyed what's there. I can't really go any higher than that because there's not enough meat to it.
Given that I don't usually even bother reading the backup to Batman, and I ended up liking the backup more than the main story this week, is there's a notable point to make.
Yeah,
a notable point. So, fair play to Batgirls. I'm happy. It seems like it's going to be good now. So that's cool.
I will give it a 7.5 since you jumped right over me.
I didn't realize you read it, Matt.
Yeah. Nope. Oh, jeez.
I didn't think you read it. I'm sorry, Matt. I did not realize you read it.
I'd been weighing in.
I thought you were just looking at the art as we were talking about it and sort of coming up on the fly. Sorry, Matt.
Jeez. This guy.